What's holding you back? Very often in my seminars, I say, what is your biggest single goal in life today? And what holds you back from achieving it? What sets the speed at which you achieve the goal? When I ask this question in my seminars or my consulting work, the common answers I get back are lack of funding, or I don't have the education, or my background, or even I'm not sure of the next step to take. What I've discovered, however, is that while all of these may be factors that can impact success, they're not the deciding or underlying factor. Do you know what is shackling people and depriving them from the success they desire and deserve? In most cases, it is fear. It's a deep, unconscious fear of failure or fear of rejection. It's a fear of loss. It's a fear that you will not succeed or that you'll be embarrassed. You may say to yourself, not me, I'm fearless. But the reality is fear is innate in human beings. Which, by the way, it's a good thing. It's there for your protection. There are, after all, some things we should be fearful of. Playing golf in lightning, for example, or literally swimming with the sharks. But what about success? We should be embracing success, enjoying topping goals and accomplishing newer, better, and greater things. Yet, fear is a dangerous obstacle in part because we may fail to admit its existence. Fear needs to be recognized and managed properly, or it becomes an anchor. We can become indecisive, have self-doubt, and simply fail to act. Fear may have us sitting on a great concept or idea, or it may restrict us from using our true talents. But what if there was a way to turn fear into fuel? This is the great question. First, you must realize the role negative thinking plays in feeding your fears. The thoughts may already be there, suggesting you can't, you shouldn't, and yeah, but what if? Before you know it, negative thoughts have piled one upon another and have become a seemingly insurmountable mountain to climb. I'm not saying you should ignore reality, but most often these negative thoughts are just a boogeyman under the bed. When you look closer, you'll find there's nothing there. I believe it is much more productive to be proactive in managing these negative thoughts. Instead of allowing negative thoughts to affect you emotionally to the point of indecision or inaction, put your logical brain to work in your favor. Rather than listening to the I can't, ask yourself, how can I? Ask yourself, what's the best way to achieve this, as opposed to I shouldn't or what if I lose? Change the words, what if it doesn't work, to imagine how terrific it will be when it works. It can help you to be even more specific about this.
There are two essential factors that keep negative emotions, that create them and keep them alive. The first is justification. And justification is where you feel that you are justified in your negative emotion. As a matter of fact, justification is where you say, hey, I'm entitled to this negative emotion because of what this person did and what this person said and what this person said to me. I'm justified. And what we do is we talk around, as we drive around, we have a continual, ongoing conversation thinking of all the reasons why we're justified in being angry, upset, and negative about this person. That's all we think about is I'm entitled to this emotion. The other factor that creates negative emotion, is identification. Identification is taking things personally. If we can't take things personally, then what happens is we cannot attach any negativity to it. If it's not personal, for example, if someone robbed a store in Bangladesh 2 weeks ago and took all the money of the poor people, we don't suffer any negative emotion from that because we don't take it personally. We look at unfortunate experiences that happen in the world, earthquakes and tsunamis and so on, but we don't get emotional about them because they don't really affect us. How many people went to bed tossing and turning and weeping over the Japanese tsunami and the shutdown of the nuclear reactor? Well, we read it in the paper and then we just watch something else on TV, go to the comic section or sports. I mean, to us, there's no emotion attached to it because we don't take it personally. And so if you stop justifying and creating reasons why you're entitled to the negative emotion, and you stop identifying, your negative emotions begin to shrivel and die. Now, how do we starve the fruits of the negative emotion tree? We become non-judgmental. If you can become non-judgmental, in which case you simply refuse to judge. You simply refuse, like they say, that prejudice is prejudgment, and so what you do is you don't judge. In the Bible, which is a book that gives a lot of ideas on peace of mind, it says, "Judge not that ye be not judged, for with whatever judgment you mete out, you shall be judged withal." In other words, if you judge other people, they'll judge you. So what you do is you judge not. And if you don't take a side or an opinion, you have no emotion attached to it. It disconnects the emotion completely. So when you hear something, don't get upset or angry about it, just don't judge. You say, well, let's get all the facts. I have worked with great leaders whose companies face tremendous crises, and in every case they go as calm as water. They're calm and they're placid and they don't judge. They say, well, let's see exactly what happened. And so they ask questions. I've written a book on this called, it was going to be called Crunch Time. They called it Crunch Point. But what it basically says is it taught people stop the clock, stay calm, get the facts. And they don't judge, they don't get angry, they don't get upset, they don't get worked up, they stay calm. And the measure of how successful you are as a person is how calm you can remain when there's turbulence in the world around you, as opposed to getting caught up immediately. The second thing is identify, don't take things personally. And so we say here, we become non-judgmental, and second of all, we disidentify, we practice detachment. People don't want to give up their negativity, and so you're going to have to play with this idea and say, wait a minute, let's say you had a lousy relationship and the person treated you very, very badly and it ended with awful divorce and emotional stress and so on and so forth. What you do is you say, wait a minute, I'm responsible. I'm responsible. Now, how and in what way could I possibly be responsible? Well, I got myself into the situation. I married the person. When it was clear it wasn't going to work out, I stayed in the situation. In fact, even before I got married, I knew that this was not a good idea, but I did it anyway because my mother expected me to. And we'd already sent out the invitations. And I could have gotten out. 38% of people who get married say that if it were not for all the people coming, they'd already changed their mind. 38% of people realize they would have changed their mind. The existence of one negative emotion that you will not let go of will cause you to stay in the same place, spin your wheels, and go in circles for the rest of your life. Now, this is one of the great breakthrough thoughts that I learned. First of all, you unplug all your negative emotions by just saying the words, I am responsible. Imagine that you bought a brand new Mercedes-Benz 450 SEL, beautiful, beautiful car, fabulous in every respect. It cost $120,000. Fabulous engineering, beautiful engine, everything working perfectly. And let's say this is the front end of the car with the symbol, ta-da, and so on. And so on. And however, there was a problem in the factory. Nobody picked it up, but they installed one of the brakes backwards on one of the front wheels. They installed it backwards so that wheel would not turn. The wheel is locked in place. Now you get into the car and you start it up, and of course they have the drivetrain which drives the back wheels, and you start it up and you step on the gas and the car starts to move, but this wheel won't turn. It's locked in place. What will happen to the car? Yes, the car will start to go around in circles. It'll start to spin around this wheel. I've just explained to you about a 4-year degree in modern psychology. Unhappy people are people who have one brake locked on, and as a result, they go around in circles all their lives. They never get ahead, they never get happy, they never get rich, they never have great relationships, they never have good health, is they're constantly going around this. The whole purpose of psychotherapy is to help people identify what that is, whether it goes back to childhood or a relationship or an embarrassment or a shame or something else. But if you have one brake locked in place where you have not let go, then your life will go around in circles forever. This is one of the reasons why people who have been through this process that we're talking about and finally agreed, they had the courage to let it go. It takes tremendous courage to let something go that was so painful when you were young, but to have the courage to accept responsibility and emotionally walk away from it. The ability to do that sets you free. And in a short period of time, that situation is like a bag of garbage you left by the side of the road. It's gone forever. It falls off the horizon. And suddenly your whole life, like that car now, this car can go at incredible speeds and take you to a wonderful place. Your life, like a great Mercedes-Benz, can now go to extraordinary places at great speeds if you can get rid of that one thing. But it's hard to do. It takes courage to do it. It takes character. Negative emotions, we say that this is responsible and this is irresponsible. And everybody is on a graph somewhere in between these two. You're either irresponsible is you see everybody else is responsible for your life, or you're totally responsible. The top 10% of people are totally responsible. These are leaders. And you can be a leader without followers. You can be a leader without a staff. A leader is a person who behaves like a leader, and a leader is someone who takes total responsibility. Now, the more responsibility you accept, the more control you feel you have over your life. Not only physical and financial control, but emotional control. You feel you're in charge, and the more control you have, the more freedom you have. If you were to ask people why they want to start their own business, why they want a lot of money, if you ask them over and over again, the final question they will always give you is to be free. We all want to be free. We love freedom. No human being has ever said, I have too much freedom, please take some away from me. There are politicians who believe that members of the voting public have too much freedom, and they believe that they have been elected to take that freedom away by taxes and regulation. But there's never a person who says, I have too much freedom, please tax away my income, please regulate me and constrain my behavior so that I do things that you think are good for me. When you put it like that, nobody would ever say that. And yet this is one of the great dilemmas of the day. So the more responsibility you accept, the more control you have, the greater freedom you have. And the greater freedom you have, the more positive emotions you have. So there's a direct one-to-one link between responsibility and control, freedom, and positive emotions. At the bottom end of the spectrum, irresponsibility leads to a lack of control, feeling out of control, a lack of freedom, you feel controlled by other people, and negative emotions. Now, I spent 4,000 hours and several years of my young life studying the concept of negative emotions. This is some of the most important work that has ever been done based on people all over the world, because the only thing that stands between you and a fabulous life are negative emotions, fear and negative emotions. If you have no negative emotions, since nature abhors a vacuum, what will your mind be filled with? If you have no negative emotions, the mind does not remain empty. What does it fill with? It fills with positive emotions of love and happiness and joy and exhilaration. So the great business of life is to eliminate negative emotions. And eliminating negative emotions is the key to unlocking the power of your subconscious and superconscious minds. So how do we do that? Well, I figured out how. And it works like a dam. Nothing and no one makes you angry. There is no anger or negativity in a situation by itself. It has no emotion attached to it any more than a rock does. All emotion in a situation is emotion that you put into that situation by the way you interpret it to yourself, by the way you justify or identify or blame. So eliminating blame and negative emotions, eliminate them by using the law of substitution. And the law of substitution says replace the blame thought with this affirmation, I am responsible. Now, this seems so simple, and yet I still think about it and use it every day, is that it's impossible to blame, it's impossible to accept responsibility and to blame at the same time. The one cancels the other. So it's impossible to be negative and accept responsibility. It's impossible to not feel empowered when you accept responsibility. What I learned, which had such an impact on my mind, is that we rationalize. By rationalize, is we use our mind to think of all kinds of reasons why we are entitled to our negative emotions. So what we do instead is we use our mind to cancel negative emotions and to think of reasons why we should not have them. And instead of using our minds against ourselves, but by committing emotional hara-kiri, where you slice your gut and plunge the knife into yourself and make yourself unhappy and miserable, what you do is you use your mind to eliminate the expression of negative emotions. So if you think of any negative experience in your life, you just simply say, wait a minute, I am responsible. I am responsible. And then you think, in what way am I responsible? In what ways am I responsible? If you're dealing with a negative situation that you've had for a long time, the first time I recommend this to you, it's very hard because you have fallen in love with your negativity. And you don't want me talking it out of you. Here's an interesting point, is calmness is what leads to peace of mind. Calmness is also coextensive with self-esteem, self-confidence, effectiveness, creativity. When you become emotionally involved in anything, all of your creative, your higher mental powers shut down and you revert to fight or flight, your limbic system, fear, anger, and so on. As long as you become emotionally involved, you cannot think clearly. There's a line from Francis Bacon, it says, where it maketh a man who can in no way be true to his own ends. In other words, we get so excited. So the key is to stay calm. That's why they say, take a deep breath, count to 10, stay calm, detach, get the facts, don't get upset, don't get involved. Well, this is how we starve the negative emotions. You'll find that people who have no negative emotions are much calmer and much more positive than others. However, there's something even better, and that is the key to ridding yourself of negative emotions is to cut down the trunk of the tree. Is to cut down the trunk of the tree, which is blame. And blame lies at the root of 99% of negative emotions.
Well, here's some tips for me to stay motivated when times are rough. First of all, remember the natural tendency of human beings when they have a reversal of any kind is to blame someone else for the problem. And so the starting point of staying in control mentally and emotionally is refuse to blame anyone else. The magic words are the words, I am responsible. I am responsible. Even if you didn't do anything to cause the problem, you are responsible for how you behave. Now here's a second point, is when things go against you, when you have problems or difficulties, everybody's watching you to see how you behave. So the rule is, be cool, be calm, just be relaxed. I wrote a whole book on this called, I was going to call it Crunch Time, and they called it Crunch Point. But it basically said this, is when something goes wrong, there's several things that you can do to stay in control. Number one, resolve to stay calm. Number two is get the facts. Sometimes when things go wrong, when they have problems, you don't have enough facts. Sometimes it's not really a problem at all, or in most cases it's not as big a problem as you thought. And the way you do that is by asking questions. Ask questions, say, what exactly happened here? Who did what? When did it happen? How did it happen? And then, how do we know that it happened? Another way to deal with problems is to write it down and say, what exactly is the problem that I'm concerned about? We find that if you can use your brain to write down the problem on paper, in most cases it begins to solve itself. Once you've written it down, you say, all right, what are all the possible solutions to this problem? What could we do now to minimize the damage? What could we do now to take advantage of the situation? Is it really a problem? Sometimes when you have a reversal, it's nature's way of telling you, don't go in this direction. 80% of products that are introduced by the smartest marketers in the world fail every year. And what they do is they learn, if this didn't work, maybe something else will. And by trying something different, often they develop a product or service or strategy that makes them a great success. And communicate with others. Tell everybody else what is going on. The very act of communicating with other people keeps you calm and more thoughtful. Finally, make a decision. What action are you going to take immediately to solve this problem, to resolve this difficulty? Remember, successful people, leaders, are intensely action-oriented. Your great question is always, what is my next action? What is my next action? What do I do now? And then finally get so busy solving the problem and bringing about a solution that you don't have time to think about it or worry about it anymore. This is one of the great strategies throughout all of history, is get so busy taking action that you don't have time to worry or be concerned about what other people may be thinking or feeling. One of the best ways to use fear as fuel is to face it head on. It's not embarrassing to fear change or to enjoy your comfort zone, but if you don't recognize its presence and sometimes its dominance, fear can hold you back without you even knowing it. Turn those fears into empowering, positive questions that your logical brain can work upon. Practice on reaching out from your comfort zone and recognize and face your fears. It very well could fuel you to the next level.